work like this, is it possible for you to ever work with the dramaturg?
Yes, but I think, well, my ideal dramaturg is, or as I think every dramaturg should work, is that a good dramaturg manages to see a work on its own premises. So perhaps I'm writing this world and I have a sense of the rules, but a good dramaturg can help me kind of put into language what I'm doing. And in that sense I can definitely work with a dramaturg. But I'm a bad match with a dramaturg who tries to impose something else into the structure or try to impose a different set of rules. But a good dramaturg could say, from this origin, these are the rules that you make, or this is the universe that you make. This scene is not within that universe, it's something else. And then I can, you're actually right, or I disagree because it isn't this and this, then you have to change that. So in that sense I can work with the dramaturg, most definitely, but yeah, it's tricky. There's not many of those kind of dramaturgs around.
Why not, do you think?
I don't know. I think there's this misconception of the dramaturg as a kind of taste judge, or like not being able to put aside some of your tastes for the benefit of the premise of the play. Yeah. So I think it's all about finding the premise and how can I help evolve the premise of the play on its own premises. Yeah.
We were talking about different dramaturgical models here, right? So, you know, a play where everything whizzes past, or a play where everything happens in separate bubbles. All of those are kind of nice visual images for what a dramaturgical model.
Yeah.
And neither of those, for example, sound particularly Aristotelian.
No.
What is your opinion on the? I mean, most of the theatre that kind of traditionally is written for young audiences follow a fairly strict Aristotelian structure, at least kind of back in the day. But I think that is slowly changing, both in the Scandinavian countries, in Germany.
Well, in a sense, because my kind of philosophy is that I don't believe that dramaturgies necessarily have to mirror the daily life of young people. So in that sense, if we say the life of many young people are fragmented, then suddenly the Aristotelian dramaturgy is an alternative. So so if the presumption is that, then suddenly Aristotelian is an alternative. So I don't think it's per definition wrong in any way. But what I see is that a lot of movies, for example, use the Aristotelian dramaturgy still, and I think we are in a good position to offer alternatives.
Do you think these alternatives could potentially confusing, or that other dramaturgies that are less familiar to a young audience might throw them or disinterest them?
I guess that's a question of quality, I guess. I don't think any dramaturgy is per definition confusing, but I think we should know what we do in a sense. And I think that if there are someone who likes playing with how the world is experienced or seen, or just how we are in the world, then I think it's young people. So in that sense, I think different kind of dramaturgies can offer good alternatives in that sense. Yeah.
You've studied, you've written a dissertation or a paper on absurdism and surrealism.
Yeah.
It's a comparative paper.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you've got some notes on that.
Yeah, well, I just abandoned my notes, so it's okay. I'll
No, but you
swing
could,
it.
I'm just wondering if you can. No, because one of the questions I wanted to ask you
Yeah.
was, I think again in a lot of children's theatre, I see writers who feel the liberty to write an absurd play or use surrealist imagery and so on. But could you and very often those two words are confused, or they're confused with each other, but they're actually two different things. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, first off, I think, as you said, I think we often use the word absurd in the wrong way. Absurdist theater art is every kind of art that thematizes the pointlessness of being alive, in a sense. Some children theater do that, but we often confuse it absurd with just something weird, I guess. And that's more connected to surrealism in a way, because the nature of surrealism was to try to mimic kind of a dream logic, to be able to speak to the human in a different kind of way than only to the brain, or only to the heart, only to the feelings. So it's kind of it's closely connected to the metaphor, I guess, because the function of metaphor is really just finding surprising ways of seeing the world, which can help us think about the world in a different way. And in that sense, I think surrealist tools is quite good, because they offers us a way of thinking differently. So, and also thinking about theater, or responding to theater in a way that does not necessarily connect to logic for first and most, but perhaps to the fantasy. I guess a lot of young people's, especially children's lives, are closely connected to the metaphor because they see the world quite fresh, and the fantasy has such a big part in that life, the daily life. The fantasy is not something set apart from the daily life, in a sense. So in that way, I think the surrealistic approach is quite an interesting one. Yeah.
And more so than the absurdist pointlessness.
Well, not necessarily. No, because I think that is something. Well, every human being realizes at some point that their parents are going to die, and if you're going to die, what's the point? If you know you're going to die, what's the point? But that doesn't necessarily say if it's weird or normal, or so. In a sense, that's more kind of a theme, but the surrealistic approach is more kind of a formatic kind of approach. So I would love to see absurd theater for children, and I think a lot of theater for children thematize death. So in a sense, gets close to absurd theater without actually kind of being it, in a sense.